OGs and young gods, OGs and young gods.
I know you guys are probably asking yourselves, who gave this nigga the right to write a Bible? But if we all look past the lies and false teachings of the men that portray themselves to be the powers that be and seek the truth, our lives just as well as all that lives, lives are Bible.
OGs and young gods, OGs and young gods, OGs and young gods.
No matter what man-made religion we believe in, just being true to thy Lord within ourselves will bring us peace. It's gonna be alright, cause in hell, we can't win the war between good and evil without being truthful to the powers that be.
OGs and young gods, OGs and young gods, OGs and young gods.
Hood, hierarchy, mob pad. Every single episode, man, we gonna give them a little background.
I know how I feel because I've been through that 1,000 times.
Lovely ghetto you, beautiful ghetto you, sweet ghetto.
We made so much doing that. I started taking that money throwing the concerts.
It's your boy, Project Pata. Hood hierarchy, man. You know what I'm saying? Hey, man, look, man, if it ain't in the hood, man, it ain't on here.
Hey, this your boy Mario Cannon, man. You rocking with Hood Hierarchy. You already know what's going down.
Team Pretty P stand up. It's a wrap. Tune in.
It's Deli Dale. And whenever I got time and I'm relaxing and I'm chilling, I don't give a damn if I'm laying in the bed with you. I'm checking out Hood Hierarchy. And it's just that simple, just that easy.
It's 7 Up, man, straight from Brooklyn. I want y'all to check my boy out, Uncle Beast, Hood Hierarchy. Get the dopest interviews, the dopest content, the dopest platform, straight from Chi-Town, man. You know what it is, man. We representing Uncle Beast, Hood Hierarchy. That's the highest of prestige. Get it? You already know. That's on game. You heard?
Well, I was saying this the one and only HD president, Mr. Bow Bow Bow. This is Hood Hierarchy checking in. I'm signing out. HD4, bow, bow, bow.
I'm booked and I'm busy. Yeah, I'm booked and I'm busy. Yeah, I'm busy. I'm about my money and not too many. Can't get with me. Stick to my lonely. Stick to my homies. Cause I ain't friendly. Ain't no gimme. I pulled it out the mud. Before I give this to you quick, ain't no showing love. I'm booked and I'm busy.
Yeah, I'm booked. Damn so busy. Schedule paper money, run it up.
F&G shit. Shot the whole day, go. Shot the bro Trey Boogie. We sliding. Sliding in the rentals, trying to run a milli up. In the southeast, Trey Boogie been a plug. Rubber bands on the blues, hella panoramic views. If you get into it with the squad, you can never lose. It's on the flow like Yellow Rider. I got your vibe on her toes like nail polish. In the city, we get respected from everybody. You about to pull up on Trey Boogie, now let's chop it. If you talking about the game, let's chop it up. If you talking about the hustle, let's chop it up. If you talking about the grind, let's chop it up. Talking about some fly vibes, baby, let's chop it up. If you talking about the game, let's chop it up. If you talking about the hustle, let's chop it up. If you talking about the grind, let's chop it up. Talking about some fly vibes, baby, let's chop it up. Let's chop it up. Got it wet, it's not a cut. Ain't worried about what nobody else got, cause I got enough. Me and Trey Boogie locked in, he threw a lob, I done. Heard the beat and sauced it up, can't nobody go hard as us. If you talking about the game, let's chop it up. If you talking about the hustle, let's chop it up. If you talking about the grind, let's chop it up. Talking about some fly vibes, baby, let's chop it up. If you talking about the game, let's chop it up. If you talking about the hustle, let's chop it up. If you talking about the grind, let's chop it up. Talking about some fly vibes, baby, let's chop it up.
What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? What's up? What's up? Hey, it's been a minute. I know I've been tripping. I ain't been tripping. You know, sometimes you gotta take days off for your mental health. And plus, y'all know I'm in school. You know, y'all know I've been on my workouts, just trying to take care of that mind, body, and soul. You know, taking care of that mind, body, and soul. I appreciate everyone tapping in. As always, you could have been anywhere else right now at this moment, but you're here with me for a little bit, man. And we ain't going to, you know, be here too long. We here for a good time, not a long time. Muhammad Brooks, I see you on Instagram. Come on over to the YouTube. If you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, if you're on Kick, even y'all on TikTok, come on over to YouTube. Come on over to YouTube. Again, I appreciate everybody, man. This is the Friday night chop up. I'm your big homie Trey Boogie. And I got a good one for us today, man. It's when grief, excuse my voice, when grief meets trauma. You know, navigating through PTSD and loss. Navigating through PTSD after loss. You know, a lot of things going on in the world right now. You know, it seems like every time I get on social medias, someone passed away, someone lost a loved one, you know, and we always talk about that untreated trauma, you know. So I love doing this one. I love doing this Friday night chop up, you know, because it helps not only me, but it helps other folks. Folks be hitting me up, letting me know it's helping them out, you know, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So let's talk about grief and PTSD. Let's talk about grief and PTSD, okay? So we can understand what we're talking about tonight, you know. So grief is a natural response to loss. You know, it's painful, and it's often messy. And it's not something that could be fixed, you know. It's not something to be fixed. Everybody got their own grieving process. You know, it's something that you have to carry. You just carry it through every day and day. Day in and day out, you just carry it through, you know. A PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, is a mental health condition triggered by experiencing or witnessing a terrifying or life-threatening event. That includes a traumatic loss, like a sudden death or a violent passing, or witnessing someone die. And we talk about this all the time on the Fridays. We talk about it a lot. Not everyone who grieves develops PTSD, and not all trauma results in PTSD. But when the two collide, it can make a healing process more complex. And that's what we want to dig into today, you know. So what makes grief traumatic? Losing someone unexpectedly, say through suicide or an accident or during a disaster, that can leave us feeling shocked, disoriented, even unsafe in our own bodies. But when we witness death or blame others for it or feel powerless to prevent it, that grief can take root in our nervous system in a different way. And that's what happened. We talk about, you know, those reliving moments and stuff like that. You know, it affects your nervous system. So look, we're going to say when you're dealing with that, you avoid reminders, right? And it could be like photos, it could be places, even certain dates, you know. I know there's certain dates that I wake up sometimes just feeling sad, right? Not feeling right, not knowing why. And then I look on the calendar and realize this is the day that I lost someone, you know? You feel numb and disconnected from your emotions. You know, you wake up with nightmares or panic attacks. It affects everybody differently, right? And these are the signs that if those happen, these are the signs, those are the signs that PTSD might be a part of your grieving process. You know, and the signs. Let's talk about some of the signs you deal with, right? Especially after a loss, you know. And if you're dealing with these type of things after a loss, you might be dealing with PTSD. I don't like to say suffering because you're not suffering, you're dealing with it, right? You're living with it. You know, you may feel stuck in your grief, like it's not easy at all, or, you know, even after months and months and months, you still stuck in that grief. You know, you're avoiding reminders of the person or the loss itself, right? You don't want nothing to remind you of this person or whatever you lost, you know? You have those intrusive memories, like flashbacks or intense emotional reactions. You know, you feel jumpy or anxious or just hyper aware of your surroundings, you know? That's me. You know, when I'm in restaurants, I have to sit a certain way. I can't have my back towards the entrance. You know, I don't deal with fireworks and 4th of July. That it makes me jumpy. You know, you feel intense guilt, especially survivor's guilt. You know, that's something I want to talk about and make a whole segment on survivor's guilt. You know, before I knew what it was, I didn't even know I was dealing with it. You know, being in 2 combats, even from just living life, right? We're all living in cities and stuff where things happen. You may be with someone and something happened and have that why me? Why, you know, people say, why couldn't it be me? You know, survivor's guilt, and it's serious. And grief on its own is already a heavyweight, but when trauma's involved, it's like carrying that weight with a wound that hasn't been treated, you know? So the complicated grief I want to talk about, you know, that's when grieving doesn't fade away. There's also something, it's also called prolonged grief disorder. There is a name for that. You know, and it's when grief lasts much longer than expected and interferes with your daily life. You know, you may feel like your life ended that day that person died. You can't imagine a future without them. You feel joy is impossible, or maybe it's even wrong to feel joy, right? And this isn't a weakness, and this isn't a you're not moving on type of thing. It's just the grieving process. You know, it's sometimes we just need to carry that load. You know, it's hard losing people that's close to you. You don't want to forget that. You know, when my brother passed away, you know, by suicide, this was back in '99, right? And I still could remember his voice, his laugh. I see his smile. I still could see all that, you know. So healing, and what helps? What helps that healing? What helps that healing, you know? And healing is possible. You can heal. You know, that life goes on and this and that. That's stuff you don't want to tell people. You know, we know life goes on, but it goes on hard for a lot of people, you know, that's dealing with that. You know, there's no timeline to grieving. And there's no right way. But there's tools that could help you. You know, there's therapy out there. I talk about trauma-informed therapy. We talk about EMDR, cognitive behavioral therapy. You know, those therapies could be life-changing. I've been through them all. And for years, I didn't want to talk to anyone. I dealt with everything on my own. I bottled up everything, right? And then I'll just black out and explode on people on accident, you know, not even on purpose. And don't even know I'm doing it. You know, there's counseling that helps process emotions and memories and that sense of disconnection. You know, your community. You know, you don't have to do this alone. There's support groups, there's online ones, even, and they could even make a big difference, right? There's what they call creative expression. That's like journaling, art, music, or even speaking to other peoples about it. You know, some people do rituals and and remembrance, like on that day, what they call the death anniversary, light a candle, you know, you say their name. My grandma used to say, if you don't remember someone out loud after they pass, they die twice. You know, you could write them a letter, you know, get your emotions out. Just honor them in a way that feels right for you. And then there's body-based healing. You know, PTSD isn't just in your head. It lives in your body, right? So grounding exercise, breath work, yoga, gentle walks, you know, could reconnect you to safety. I like to go for walks. I like to go to the gym now, you know. When I'm depressed, when I'm stressed, it feels good to just get it out. Some people like punching on punching bags, you know. Whatever it is, that's going to help you deal with this. Find that. Find that. What's up, Tech? I see you. Come on over to YouTube. Find that. You know. And this is what not to say to people grieving. Because a lot of people, we want to be there. We want to talk to, you know, try to help the folks. But we may say the wrong things and not even knowing we're saying the wrong things, right? Not even knowing what you're saying is a little insensitive. So don't say things like, you know, everything happens for a reason. You know, they're in a better place. Like, are they? I've been to funerals, right? I'm going to just say it. I've been to funerals and I know how this person lived their life. And then the pastor or the priest or whoever it is speaking always say, you know, they're in a better place now. They're not feeling any more pain. But you don't know that. We don't know that. You know, at least it was quick. Don't say stuff like that, you know, or you need to move on. You don't tell nobody how to grieve. Everybody grieve differently. Everyone have their own process. So instead, try to say things like, you know, I'm here and I'm not going anywhere, you know. Tell me about them. You know, that sounds so painful. Do you want to talk? And let them talk. You know, some people just need someone to talk to. So listen to them, you know, and don't be subjective. You know, you may think you're trying to do something good, but a word could trigger them, you know. Like I said, back in '99, when my brother passed, it was rough. You know, I was the last person he spoke to. You know, all weekend I had spoke to him. He was locked up. All weekend I was speaking to him and trying to take care of something he needed taken care of for him. And I remember coming home on Monday from work and I had like 40 missed calls from him, you know. So that next day before I went to work, I left. Remember, I'm an old person, so we used to have voice recording machines, voice answering machines. you know. So I left them a message telling them I'll be home after this at a certain time and to call back after that time. I just remember going home that Monday. That Tuesday, the next day. And I had the caller ID machine in the living room. And I had like 50 something calls on my caller ID. And it was bananas, and it was all family members, right? So I went in the bedroom and hit the answer machine, and it said, beep, you know, you have 52 messages. And just getting the first message that was on it telling me that my brother passed away. You know, he committed suicide. I didn't even listen to all the other ones as they were playing, but they were playing, right? And I tell people I still haven't grieved for my brother. I have not. You know, I had my little brother. I had to go make sure he was okay. You know, my grandparents, I had to make sure I just put myself in take care mode. And you never get over that. You never get over that. You know, my grandmothers, you know, they raised me. They passed away. You're never going to get over it. You're never going to get over it. So listen, I like to know what y'all think, you know. Any of this help you out? Can it help someone else out? Send it to them. You know, drop comments. Once it's posted, drop comments. Let me know what you think. Tell me what you're going through. You know, maybe we could deal with it on one of the Friday night chop ups. I just want to say, you know, before we go, if no one's told you this today, you know, you're allowed to grieve. You're allowed to feel loss. And you're allowed to heal at your own pace. Remember that. Remember that. It's your big homie's big homie, Trey Boogie. It's the Friday night chop up. Remember, you're okay to heal at your own pace.
F&G shit. Shot the whole day, go. Shot the bro Trey Boogie. We sliding. Sliding in the rental, trying to run the milli up. In the southeast, Trey Boogie been a plug. Rubber bands on the blues, hella panoramic views. If you get into it with the squad, you can never lose. It's on the flow like Yellow Rider. I got your vibe on her toes like nail polish. In the city, we get respected from everybody. You about to pull up on Trey Boogie, now let's chop it. If you talking about the game, let's chop it up. If you talking about the hustle, let's chop it up. If you talking about the grind, let's chop it up. Talking about some fly vibes, baby, let's chop it up. If you talking about the game, let's chop it up. If you talking about the hustle, let's chop it up. If you talking about the grind, let's chop it up. Talking about some fly vibes, baby, let's chop it up. Let's chop it up, got it wet, it's not a cut. Ain't worried about what nobody else got, cause I got enough. Me and Trey Boogie locked in, he threw a lob, I dunk. Heard the beat and sauced it up, can't nobody go hard as us. If you talking about the game, let's chop it up. If you talking about the hustle, let's chop it up. If you talking about the grind, let's chop it up. Talking about some fly vibes, baby, let's chop it up. If you talking about the game, let's chop it up. If you talking about the hustle, let's chop it up. If you talking about the grind, let's chop it up. Talking about some fly vibes, baby, let's chop it up.